Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all are doing well. Today we're going to build the front end of the digital library application. The back end of the app was built in the first part of this series. I'm going to put a link to the video of the backend implementation in the description if you want to take a look at it. We are going to take a look at the backend before we start building the front end, just to show you the endpoints that we are actually going to be calling from our application. But the first thing we're going to do is go ahead and demo the app once again to show you what are the features and how is the front end going to work. So this is one of the tab that you see. So in the app, we have the Discover tab and then we have the Library tab. The idea is that in the Discover tab, you are able to search for any book that you want to, and then you can go ahead and add the book into your library. The book is going to be added to the wishlist section, and then you can move it all the way up to complete it. So let's say you add it to the wish list, and then you purchased a book, then the book is going to move here. And then let's say you finish the book and you can hit completed book, and then the book is going to move here. And once it is in the completed section, you can go ahead and rate the book like you can see over here. So we're just going to do one demo to show you how it works. Let's say the book we're searching for, let's say we want to just search for, let's say, productivity. Okay, so I'm going to hit search book. Then I get a list of all the books that the Google Books API is giving us. So let's say this is the one you want to add. So we're going to hit add book. You get a toast over here that says book added to wishlist. Now, if you go to the library and scroll all the way down, you can see that the book is over here. Now, let's say you bought the book and you want to move it to the unfinished section. You go ahead and hit the purchased book button, and automatically your book moves here while you get a toast that says book moved to a different section. Now, let's say you went ahead and finished the book. You can go ahead and hit completed book. And now the book moves to the completed section, and you get another toast that says book moved to a different section. Now, once the book is in the completed section, initially the book will be unrated. So you can see it says rate book, and then it gives you the stars. You can go ahead and rate it right now. So let's say we found the book not too helpful. So I'm going to rate it 2 stars. So you click it, and now you can see the 2-star being retained. And you saw the toast message that was there. So if you refresh and go to the library, you're going to see that the rating has been retained because the backend has stored the data. So that's the front end we're going to be building. Just as a refresher for the backend, we do have a Python FastAPI backend. Once again, I'm going to put the link in the description if you want to see how we built the whole backend, from the API design all the way to how we were storing the data in our Postgres database. In terms of endpoints, we essentially had 4 endpoints that is serving the whole application. The first one is the books endpoint, which gives you all the books. So you get a list of all the books, and each of the book has like these attributes. Then we had a post endpoint, which was to create a new book. So whenever you go ahead and let's say like Superbug. Yeah, so whenever you want to add a book to the library, you hit this add book. That is when we're calling this post endpoint to create the new book and store it in our database. And then you have the put endpoint, which is for an existing book in the completed section. You can go ahead and give it a rating, like we gave the book a 2-star. And then the other put endpoint is the endpoint you use to, let me show you, to move the book in between the sections. So remember, when we were like hitting the button, the book was moving from one section to another. To do that, we were using the endpoint over here. So those 4 endpoints are all we need to make this app functioning just the way you saw it. I am going to put a link for the backend implementation if you want to look at the proper full stack end-to-end implementation. But if you're only interested in any part of the front end, then you can just like browse around and see which part of the video you find most helpful. All right, so the next thing is gonna be to show you the structure of the code. This is what we're gonna have. So it's gonna be a basic React front-end application, and we're gonna be using something called Chakra UI for all the UI components. This way we do not have to write any custom CSS. Everything we can just use the Chakra UI component. So in Chakra UI, you have things like button, heading, text. So instead of using generic HTML tags and custom CSS, you can just use these React components, and to customize them, you can pass in props such as color, padding, or margin, or stuff like that. All right, so we're going to be using Chakra UI, and the app is going to be in Reactjs. In terms of the file structure, we are going to have an app.js file, which is going to be our top level React component. And then we're going to write 3 components. One is going to be the discover component. This is going to be the discover page over here. And then we're going to have the library component. This is going to be the library component here. And then we're going to have a library book component, which is going to be each book that you see within the library. So we're gonna do everything from scratch. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete all the code so that we can start from scratch. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. I'm gonna go ahead and delete this. Also this, and then finally our app.js. Okay. I'm gonna keep the import statements because those tend to be just copy paste. So let's get rid of everything here. All right, and I'm gonna, for now, let me just delete them. Okay, so let's just return hello world to begin with. All right, hopefully all of you are already somewhat familiar with React, because I am gonna move through pretty quickly, but this is gonna be a good way for you to see how to build the whole application using Chakra UI. But if you want React 101, I don't think this is the correct video for you. So I would recommend checking some React 101 videos from elsewhere and then coming to this one. All right, so, okay. So you see our app disappeared, and now all you see is hello world over here. So now let's get started. To run you through the imports in app.js, we are getting everything from Chakra UI. We're getting things like center. This is just like a div element that is centered. We have heading, which is very similar to the HTML heading. We have VStack. VStack is called vertical stacking. So this is, think of it as like a flexbox where all your elements are vertically stacked. You also have HStack, which is like the horizontal stacking. And then we have components like tabs, tab list. This is gonna let us have 2 tabs on the same page. And then you see like tab panels. But yeah, once we start doing it, you're gonna understand how all the components work together. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and delete this, and then let's get started. So the first thing you wanna do is wrap your whole application in this Chakra provider component. This is to make sure all the Chakra components are working correctly. And then our whole application is gonna be centered. So we are gonna give it a center. We're going to give it a background of black. The font color is going to be white. And then we're going to give it some padding of 8. So this is the cool way you can pass all the CSS as props rather than defining your own CSS file. So our whole application is going to be centered. This way we don't have to align everything to the center every single time. Now the top level component, because in the page, everything is going to be stacked vertically. So we are going to give it a vertical stack, VStack. And then we're going to give it a prop called spacing. This is going to be the space between the elements in that vertical stack. So we're going to give it a spacing of 7. Okay, now let's just do this to show you how it's working. So you see we have everything is centered. That's why you see the whole app centered. And then in the vertical stack, you see we have 3 elements, and each of them are vertically stacked over here. And the spacing is 7. If I reduce the spacing to 2, you can see they're closer together. Okay. All right, so that's how vertical stack works. We are going to be using it quite extensively, so it's good that you know how it works. All right, so now the first thing we're going to do is the two tabs. Remember, we had the Discover tab and then we had the Library tab. So let's do that. Okay, so we're going to use something called tabs, and then we're going to give it the variant of soft rounded, and then the color scheme is going to be red. Okay, that's our tabs, and the tabs are going to be centered, so we're going to put it in a center component. Within the center component, we are going to give our tab list, and then within tab list, we're going to have our individual tabs. So you have one tab, and then you have the other tab. These are going to be our two tabs. Okay. All right, so let's do the tabs now. So the first tab is going to be called, it's going to be a heading, which is going to be called Discover. And the second tab is going to be another heading. This is going to be called Library. Okay, so let's see what we have. There you go. So we have a library and we have a Discover, two tabs. Okay, now let's actually tell it, like give it the tab panels, right? Like, because you want to know when you click on which tab shows up. Okay. So below center, we are gonna have our tab panels. Okay, so within our tab panels, we're gonna have two panels. One is gonna be our Discover. So we would, for now, let's just give a tag. Do I have text now? So let's just give hello Discover. It's gonna be the content, right? And then we have another tab panel. Okay, so we have another tab panel, and this is gonna be, let's say, hello library. Okay. Now, if you're in Discover, it says hello Discover. If you're on Library, it says hello library. Normally, we are gonna have two separate components, but this is just to show you how the two tabs are working. Okay. Yeah, so I think we're done with most of the app.js file. Now let's go ahead and do something with the React state. So we need to maintain a few local state. So I'm gonna go ahead and add those states here. So the first state we need is gonna be the all books. This is gonna be all the books we're getting from the API. So we are gonna use a React hook for that. So we're using useState as a React for the React state management. Okay, so that is our all books hook, and then we have another state which is gonna be refresh data. This is gonna tell our UI when to actually get the data again. The reason being whenever we change some data, such as update a book or move a book between sections, we want to make sure that we refresh all the books with the updated data. Otherwise, you would have to refresh the page to get the updated data in the UI, right? All right, so we do have those two states, and now we're here. So now the first thing we need to do when it comes to calling our backend is gonna be calling this get books endpoint over here, so that all the books that are in our library is there in the top level component. Okay, so we are gonna use a use effect hook. This is gonna let us actually get the data, and we are gonna call this every single time refresh data, the state refresh data changes. This way, use effect, anything you put over here is gonna be executed when the page loads, and also whenever the value of this refresh data changes. Okay, so what do we want? We want to get the books. So we are gonna make a fetch request to HTTP 127.001 port 8000, and then our endpoint is called books. Okay, and then we are gonna do oh my god, that's not it. Okay, we're gonna take the response and then do our if I can type and do our response.json, and then we're gonna take that and then just do call our set all books, this it, and then pass it our data. Okay, there you go. So we are calling our books endpoint, turning the response into JSON, and then setting that JSON response in our all books variable here. To show you how it's going to work, I'm going to print out all books and then let's see it work. Let's go here and then let's go to inspect console. I'm going to do a refresh. So you see we get a list. At first it's an empty list because the state of all books is set to an empty list. And then once this API call succeeds, which you can see in the network tab over here, it's at 200. You can see that our all books is actually a list of objects, and each of the object is each of the book. So you have the first book is the David Allen Brandon Hall's the Getting Things Done workbook, and then you have all the books over here. All right, so we have this working, and this is going to be triggered every time you refresh the page and or whenever the value of refresh data changes. Now, the next thing it's going to be is the Discover tab. Okay, so where's our Discover tab? This is where our Discover tab is going to be. What we're going to go ahead and do is create our boilerplate over here, the Discover tab. And then this is going to take in a prop, which is going to be, this is going to be called refresh data. And over here, we are going to go ahead and import it. There you go. And then we're going to pass in the prop refresh data. And this is going to be set to fetch data. And what is fetch data, you might ask? That is going to be the next thing we define. So we are going to define a function called fetch data. And this is all it's going to do is just set our refresh data to be opposite of what refresh data is. So it essentially toggles the existing value of refresh data, which means the use effect is going to be triggered. Okay, and we're going to pass that in here. Okay, so that's working. Nothing's broken, everything's working. So now, why do we still see the Discover text here? Let's see. So, all right, because we have a Discover over here. Okay. So now let us build this Discover tab. Okay. I am gonna open my Discover tab here so that I can see what I'm doing. Okay, perfect. So the first thing we need is gonna be a bunch of import statements. I am gonna go ahead and copy paste the import statements and then run you through how it works. That's all we need, and we also need the API key. All right, so from Chakra UI, we are adding all these center, text, heading, button inputs, so very similar to what you saw in the previous app.js file. And then we have a new thing called use toast. This is gonna let us use toasts in the app. Like when you add a book, we're gonna pop up a toast that says book added and all those stuff. And we're gonna use an add icon too, that's coming from Chakra UI too. We have an API key. The API key is the one we're gonna use to call the Google Books API so that we can actually get the list of all books before adding it to the library. Okay. All right, so this is gonna be a tad bit more complex. So let's start to get into it slowly. Okay. The first thing we need is gonna be the state that we need to maintain. The first thing is gonna be the search query. This is gonna be the query that you're actually gonna send the Google API. So let's say if you want to search for a book called Productivity, that is gonna be set here. So initially this is gonna be an empty string. Okay. And then we have our search results. These are gonna be all the results that are coming from the Google API. Once again, you are gonna see how the whole thing works once I actually use these. And then we are gonna have a toast. We're gonna call it book edit toast, and we're gonna use our use toast function from Chakra UI. Okay. Yeah, so that is all the state that we need. So I'm gonna go ahead and go to the React components now. So everything is gonna be vertically stacked. We're gonna give it a spacing of 7. And there's gonna be some padding at the top. Okay. The first thing is gonna be a heading. The size of the heading is gonna be large. And we're gonna call it search books. Use state is not defined, right? So we do need to import these. Okay, there we go. All right, so you see the search books over here. Now below search books, we are gonna have a text that says find new books to add to your library. There you go. Now the next thing is gonna be a horizontal stack. So this is very similar to the vertical stack, except everything is stacked horizontally. Within the horizontal stack, we are gonna have an input field, which is gonna have width set to 600 pixel. The value within the text box is gonna be search query. And on change, we are gonna do something, but I'll come to that in a bit. That's our input, and then we have our button. The button is gonna be called search book. In terms of the props for the button, we are gonna give it a color scheme of red. The size is gonna be large. And then on click, we are gonna do something. For now, that's gonna be null. So you see we have the search bar over here. Nothing's happening if you type because we did not implement the feature yet. And then you have search book. Once again, nothing's happening because we have it set to null. Now let's actually go and build those up. So the first thing is gonna be building up the on change handler for the input button. So we are gonna call it set search query. So let's go ahead and define it here. Okay. Let's see. So where is that? Oh, actually, this shouldn't be too bad. Right, this shouldn't be too bad actually. So for the input on change, this should be very straightforward. All we need is get the event and then just call set search query. That's the setter for our state, and then give it the value of the box. Okay. Now you see as you're typing, it's showing up. So all you're doing is whenever something is changing, we're invoking the set search query method, which is the setter of our state. And this is setting the state, which is search query, to the updated thing you just typed, which is ending up in the text box because we have it as a value. All right, so that was straightforward. And now we are gonna go ahead and so right now this works, but what we want is once you type something and you hit search book, we want the results to pop up here, right? For that, we do need to call the Google Books API. Let's see how to do that. So our function is going to be called on search click. Okay. And then this is going to take in an event. Okay. All we're going to do is make a fetch to our HTTPS, and then it's called googleapis.com/book/v1/volumes. The query string is gonna be our search query. Okay. And then our API key is gonna be our API key over here. And then our max results is gonna be 40. Okay. Once we get the response, we are gonna turn it into JSON. Once it's in JSON, we are gonna set our other state, which is gonna be set search results to data, and all the list is gonna be in something called items. All right, so that should do it. So what we're doing is whenever someone is gonna be clicking this button, we are gonna be making an API call to the Google API's books endpoint. We're gonna pass in a query string, which is gonna be whatever you just typed over here. We're gonna give it an API key, which is the one we're using here. And we're telling the API to give us up to 40 results. The API accepts 40 as the maximum number, and I don't think we really need more than 40 results for one query. We make the call, then we get the response and turn it into a JSON object. Once it's in a JSON object, we go into the items attribute, which is the list of all the data that we're getting. Okay, and then we're setting that list of books to our state here called search results. All right, so that should be working now. So let's go ahead and take a look at our inspect tab, and let's go to network. Now I'm gonna refresh, and you see the books. This is the books backend endpoint that we are calling, so our endpoint. Now if I go ahead and search something, let's do like cars, search book. This should have instantiated a network request, so let's see what's happening. Did we pass it in yet? No, we did not. So our button on click should be this. Okay. Yes, I think that should do it for us. I don't think we really need to pass it the event because it's not really using it. Now let's try and type fruits and then search. So you see we're getting a 401. I believe we're getting, sorry, 404. And I think that's because we did not type the URL correctly. Let's see, so we have HTTPS googleapis.com/books/v1/volumes. Yeah, I mean, this does look right. And then you have the query, key, and max results. So let me just copy paste the URL and see if there was anything that changed, okay? Alrighty. There you go. So I'm gonna copy paste this and then let's see. There was a change. Oh, right. So we did not give our www dot. Okay, this should work now. All right, so we're gonna search for, let's say, fruits again. Now you see we're getting a 200 and the response is all these. So you see the items attribute, that the one we are getting is a list. And in the list, every item is one of the book. Okay. All right, so we have that bit working. Now let's move on to actually rendering the results once they show up. Okay. So it's gonna be below the H stack. So if our search results length is 0, so we don't have any results yet, then we are gonna go ahead and show them a center with the heading. And that's gonna be, you gotta search to see results. And then let's give it, can I give it? Let me just copy paste the emoji. Okay. There you go. All right, so at the beginning, you should see this because we don't have any, you don't have any search results. That's why you're seeing that. All right. And then what we're gonna do is below this, we're gonna have our grid. We're gonna have 4 columns and we're gonna put a spacing of 8 between the columns. And in the grid, we are gonna make sure that our search results is not 0. And then we are gonna map through them, and for every book we are gonna return a VStack. If I know how to type. All right, so inside our VStack we are gonna, let's actually put this in here. Right. I don't think I need to. Yeah. So we're gonna return a VStack, and within the VStack, this is where we're gonna have each of the book element. Okay. So we're gonna give a few attributes to our VStack. The max width is gonna be small. We're gonna give it some border width of 1 pixel. Border radius is gonna be large. Overflow set to hidden. We're gonna give it a spacing of 8, and we're gonna give it a key of book.id. Okay, now what goes inside this VStack? That's gonna be the fun bit. Okay, so we're gonna have our image, which is gonna take in a source. The source is gonna be book.volume.info.image links. If there are image links, then we're gonna access the thumbnail property. If not, we won't have an image. But most of the response will have an image for every book. All right, so we have that, and then where were we? And then we're gonna give it a width of 40. We're gonna give it a height of 60. We're gonna give it a tiny bit of padding at the top. That's all we need pretty much. That's our image. Now, let's see. If I search book, you see we are barely getting anything. Productivity. Okay, there you go. As we keep going with it, you're gonna see this like populate itself better. Alrighty, so we have our image, and now where were we? Let's see. So yeah, so we got the image done, and then do we have them correct? Yeah, we should be. Okay. Now below that, it's gonna be the badge of categories. I'm gonna copy paste that. Okay. So we are using a badge, and the badge is gonna be a color scheme of teal, and then we have our books categories over here. Okay, so you see, so we are not getting the, let me see if the image is correct. So we have the book.volume.info.image links, question mark, thumbnail. There you go. Perfect. There you go. So now we're getting the thumbnail, and we're also getting the categories. For the categories, the category you get from the API is a list. So we are joining the list with comma. So let's say if you get a list of fiction, comma, action. If you get a list of 2 elements, fiction and action, what this is gonna do is give you a string over here, and then those are gonna be like appended together. Okay. So let's say like if you had like 2 elements, it's gonna be the first element, comma, the second element, comma, the third element, fourth element, or whatever. All right, so that's our badge. And then the next bit is gonna be another vertical stack. Okay. Within the vertical stack, we are gonna have another badge. I'm gonna copy paste. The badge is gonna be the Google rating, if there is a rating. Otherwise, it's gonna be NA. There you go. And then below the badge, we are gonna have a text, which is gonna be the author. Once again, in this case, the author, the response you get from the API is a list of authors. All we're doing is joining all the names using a comma. So there you go. Okay, so that should be our VStack, and then we're gonna have another VStack. There you go. And within that VStack, we are gonna have our heading of the book. So you see it here. Okay. And after the heading, we are gonna have a bit of text. So this is getting something called a text snippet from the API response, and if it's not there, it's defaulting to the subtitle of the book. So now you get this. All right, and finally we are gonna have our add book button. That is gonna go below our text. Okay. Add book is not defined, right? So you won't be defined for now. I'm gonna run you through it, don't worry. Let's search for something. Okay, so now you see the add book button. What's happening over here is we have a center element and then the button, very typical. Within the button, we have a H stack. So the H stack is horizontally stacking the plus button and then the text add book. So we have the add icon and then the text add book. Now we need the on-click handler so that whenever you hit add book, we actually go ahead and call this API and write the book into the database table. So that is what we're gonna be calling add book and pass it a book. Okay, so now let's see how that bit is gonna work. We are gonna define a new function that's gonna be called add book. And then we're gonna construct our body, which is gonna be JSON.stringify, and then volume ID is gonna be the API, Google API's book ID. Then we're gonna have a title. Title is always gonna be there. And then I'm gonna copy paste these. The authors is gonna be a string concatenation of all the authors. Thumbnail is just gonna be the thumbnail. And then we're gonna give it a state of 2. What that does is state is which state the book is in. So if you remember, our book could be in 3 states: wishlist, not finished, and completed. Wishlist is state 2, not finished is state 1, and completed is state 0. At the beginning, when you're adding a book, you give it a state of 2 because you want to make sure it ends up in the wishlist section. Yeah, that's pretty much all the data you need to send to the backend. So we are gonna go ahead and call our backend, which is gonna be in 127.0.0.1, port 8000 books. Okay. All right, and then you give it bunch of things. So you give it a method which is gonna be post, and then you give it headers which is gonna be accept application JSON. Wait, what did I do? Oh, okay, I didn't close it. You get closed here. Okay. We're gonna give it accept application JSON, and then we are also gonna give it a content type of application JSON. Okay, so we're gonna give it some headers, and then we're gonna give it the body, which is gonna be the body. Once this comes back, we are gonna turn the response into a JSON object. And then there are a bunch of things we're gonna do. So once we get the data back as JSON, the first thing we're gonna do is call the refresh data prop. So call this one, right? So what that does is fetch data. So that essentially toggles our refresh data state, which is gonna trigger the API to get the response again. So we're gonna call that, and then we're gonna just show the toast. So if you remember, we have a function called book added toast. We are gonna just call that, and then you can give it like a body, which is gonna be the title, which is gonna be added. This is the title of the toast. We're gonna give it a description, which is gonna be book added to wishlist. And then the status is gonna be a success. And then we're gonna give it a duration. So it's gonna show up for 3 seconds, so 3000 milliseconds. and then is closable is set to true. This means that the user will be able to close it by themselves. Yeah, so that should be it. Let's see, so we are getting add book, getting the book, and then yeah, so let's see if it worked. Volume is not defined, line 37. So it's gonna be book.volume, right? It's gonna be book.volume. It's gonna be, it's our title, right? So our title is gonna be book.volumeinfo.title. Yeah, there you go. All right, so we're gonna add something. Let's say power off now. Search books, it shows up, add book. You get the toast that says added, book added to wish list. If you go to library, you would have seen this if we implemented the library section. But yeah, so we have the add book button working correctly now. All right, so that pretty much sums up the discovery tab. So we're gonna move on to the library tab now. Okay, so the library tab should be more straightforward than the discover tab. So let's do that. All right, so we are gonna go to our library, create a boilerplate. And then over here, this is gonna be our library component. To the library component, we will pass in 2 new props. This is gonna take in all books and then also refresh data. And to pass it from here, we're gonna give it all books equals all books. What is it called? Is it called all books? Yeah. And then we have, what was the other one? All book, and then refresh data. To refresh data, we're gonna be passing in fetch data like before. Right, and then let's close it. Okay, so our library should be working now. You see library, that is working. If I do library 222, you get library 222. That's working. Now the next thing is gonna be the imports. It's gonna be straightforward again. And then we are gonna need to use a library book component, but I'm gonna come to that later on. Okay, so let's see how we wanna do this now. So this is gonna be in a VStack. That's gonna have a spacing of 7 again. Within the VStack, we are gonna have a text that says this is your digital library. Add new books here, browse them, and even review them. And below the text, we're gonna have a heading. Below, not in. There you go. Let me just reposition, there you go. So we're gonna give it a heading, which is gonna be of size medium. And we're gonna call it completed. Okay. And then, is that gonna be completed? Yeah, right. So now, you see we have the completed, it's gonna be the section. Now what we could do is, I'm gonna copy paste this. So below completed, we are gonna have a simple grid again. Within the grid, we are checking if there is something in our all books list. If there is, then we're mapping through them. And then for each element, we are returning a library book. So instead of library book, for now, we are gonna return a text. Okay, and then the text is gonna be, let's do, the text is gonna be book.title. Okay, so we're mapping, we're going through every book, and for every book, whenever the state is 0, which means completed, we are rendering the title. Otherwise, we're not rendering anything. So you see, we are getting all the completed books. Similarly, we are gonna do almost the exact same thing, but so I'm gonna copy paste this 2 more times, 1, 2. The next is gonna be unfinished, which is gonna be state equals 1. And then we're gonna have wish list, which is gonna be state equals 2. Other than that, everything is the same. Now you see we have completed, which is these books. You have unfinished, which is these books. And then you have wish list, which are these books. Now let's actually render the book. Okay. So let's go to library book. I'm gonna open it over here so that I can see it. All right, so library book is gonna be another logic heavy component. So it's gonna be our library book. This is gonna take in 2 props. One is gonna be the individual book. Another is gonna be fetch data again. Now, instead of over here, oh my God, instead of our text, let's actually pass in our library book. And then as props, we're gonna give it a book, which is gonna be the book. And then we're gonna have our fetch data, which is gonna be our refresh data. Okay, and then we're gonna get rid of these. All right, so now, else return none. What did I do? Unexpected token, line 30. Here, oh, right. I don't know what these are. So let's see. So we are iterating through them. We're returning a library book or returning null. All right. So this is gonna be closing it and closing it here again. All right. So now we're getting all the library book components, which are gonna be our library book component over here. Okay. So we are gonna go ahead and return. I'm gonna return a VStack. Oh, actually, let's give it the import first. We are gonna import a bunch of things. Let me just. Okay. So we're importing all these from Chakra UI, and then we are importing something called React stars. This is gonna let us. This is a npm package that is gonna let us use the rating system, and that's coming from the package over here. Okay. Right. So we are gonna return. We're gonna have a VStack. Okay. Our VStack is gonna have a bunch of attributes, so I'm gonna just copy paste those attributes. So we're giving a max width of small, some radius, some spacing and padding. So nothing too flashy. We give it an image. This is gonna be the image at first. Right, so you're seeing the image now. Below the image, we are gonna have the title of the book. So we have the book.title. Now you see the title. Below them, we are gonna rate. So this is where it's gonna be interesting. Let's see. Okay. So let me do the other sections first, actually. Okay. So let's just, so below center, we are gonna have this. So what this is doing is it's seeing if the book.state equals 1. So 1 is unfinished, right? Yes. So for the unfinished section, we have our button that says completed book question mark, because that's only gonna be the unfinished section. And then we are gonna, let me just show you. So for now, let's just change this to null. Can't show you how it works. So you see we're getting the completed book button only in the unfinished section. Okay, I'm gonna keep this to none for now. Similarly, for the completed section, which is here, we are checking if it's 0, that means completed. And if it is completed, we're checking if there is a rating or no. If there is no rating, then we are telling them, showing them the rate book copy. And then once again, we're checking if the state is 0. And if it is 0, which means it's in a completed section, then we are going ahead and showing the rating star system. Okay. And then the rating change, I am gonna set this to null for now. Yeah, so now you see that we have our getting things done workbook rated 2, 4, 5. So to show you how the rating system works, the React stars component takes in the count, which is the total number of stars. And then on change, we're going to call a function. So whenever you click star, what happens? The size is just a size, and then the active color is the color of the stars. So in this case, it's like 4-star yellow color. And then the value is going to be the number of stars that are going to be colored, which is going to be the rating. So a rating of 0 is going to have no star, 1 is going to have 1 star, 2 is going to have 2 star. Yeah, and then on change, we're going to come back to this in a bit. And then you have the last section, which is going to be the wish list section. I'm going to put that over here. That's going to be for the wishlist section. If it's 2, which is wishlist, we are showing a button with the purchased book. And then we're going to set this to null. Did I copy one thing too many times? There you go. Move book is not defined. Yes, correct. So this is going to be set to null for now. Yeah, so for the unfinished section, we have the completed book button. For the wish list, we have the purchased book button. Okay, so that's all good. Now let's actually implement the logic to move book between sections, because now if you click, nothing happens. Okay. Okay. So we are gonna have a toast. That is use toast, and then we're gonna have the move book function, which is gonna take in a book, and then the section you want to move the book to. So the book is the existing book, and new section is where you want this to go to. The post body is gonna be json.stringify, and then we're gonna give it a JSON body, which is gonna be volume ID. It's gonna be book.volume ID. And the new state is gonna be the new section. And then we have our fetch endpoint, which I'm just gonna copy paste because it's a lot of boilerplate code. Yeah, so what we're doing is we are calling the update book state. So this endpoint over here, which takes in a volume ID and the new state. We are passing it the volume ID and the new state. And then when we get the response, we are showing our toast, which just says that book moved to a different section. And then we are gonna go ahead and call fetch data. If you recall, what this is gonna do is refresh, set the value of the refresh data so that we go ahead and trigger this use effect again. Yeah, that's all we need. Now let's actually handle calling the function. So if the book is in wishlist, we are gonna call it with the new section, and the new section is gonna be, in this case, 1, because 1 is unfinished. And if it is already there in the unfinished section, we are gonna move it to completed, which is gonna be 2. Now let's see if this is working. Library. Let's say we have our wishlist power off now. I'm gonna hit purchased book. Okay, this moves it to unfinished. And now if I go ahead and hit it again, that did not refresh the data, did it? Did we get an error? Let's see. So it seems like nothing. So let me just refresh to see if the book ended up there. The book did not end up there, huh? Interesting. Why did we just lose the book? Let's look at the code. So this is completed book. So this should move the book to section 2. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why this wouldn't work. All right, so let's do some debugging on the go. So we can look at our database. I think it's in 80. All right, so this is gonna be database, docker example db. We're gonna look at our book, select data. So we were working with power of now over here. All right, so the state is set to 2. Then why is the book not showing up? That's interesting. Or is it and I just don't see it? Let me just refresh. Yeah, I don't see it here. Huh, very, very interesting. All right, let's see what's happening. So if it's in state 1, we are moving our book to 2. Yeah, I mean, I have no idea why this is not working. I'm gonna go ahead and hit inspect, open the network tab, and then do it with one other book. Oh, wait a minute. So it ended up over here. Wait, why? So part of now, let's do it again, right? So purchased book moves over there. Okay. Completed book moves it back here. Okay, so we have some weird thing happening here. Let's see what's happening though. At least we know that it's toggling between. The interesting thing is the state is 2 though. Then why is it showing up there? You know what I mean? Like the state is 2 of outwitting the devil, and you can see outwitting the devil over here. So I don't know why. Is this not? So 0. Oh, right. So it shouldn't be 2, right? Wait a minute. It should be 2? All right, I am so confused right now. So let's see. So completed book. If we click completed book, this should go to 0, right? And that should go to 1. All right, things should work now. Let's see. So purchased book, moves it here. Completed book, moves it here. There you go. That's working. Same for this. So if you hit purchase book, this goes here. Completed book, this goes all the way top over here. Okay. Now the rating, nothing's gonna happen if I click it. Okay, it's not, I mean, it might be retained. Yeah, it's not retaining at all, is it? Yeah, now let's go ahead and fix this one. All right, so where's the rating? Okay, so we need to do the onChange function. Okay. So we are gonna call it rating changed, which is gonna take in the new rating and then the book. Okay. Our body is gonna be the volume ID, which is gonna be volume ID here. And then we're gonna have our new rating, which is gonna be the new rating here. All right, and then we're gonna have our fetch once again. I'm just gonna copy paste that. What the fetch is doing is it's calling the update rating endpoint, which is the endpoint over here, which takes in a volume ID and the new rating. And the new rating is whatever is being passed in. And similarly, we're showing the toast, getting the data again. Okay. And then this, the way this package works is whenever you change a star, you can, this arrow function is gonna get triggered with the new rating. So if you hit 2, this is gonna be triggered with 2. If you clicked on 3 stars, this function is gonna be called with 3 set to new rating. So we're just gonna call rating changed, and then give it the new rating, and then the book. Alrighty, so this should work now. Power of now, let's give it a 4-star. You got the toast. And the data is retained. Extreme productivity, let's give it 5-star. And that's working. Alright, so I think we got the whole thing working. I know we did run into a few hiccups here and there. I'll try to be more organized in the front end video the next time, because I know this time it was a tad bit messy. But I am gonna put the timestamps in the video as chapters so that you can take a look at that, if you're looking for like 1 or 2 particular sections only. So we're gonna sum it up by doing one end-to-end example. We know the backend works, we saw it in the last video. Now let's go for modern medicine. Search book. Gives me everything. Let's say we like the first one. Add book. This adds the book. We go to the library section, all the way down. The rise and fall of modern medicine. Purchased book, yes. Moves it to unfinished. Let's say you finished the book, completed book. Moves it all the way to the top, and you can give it a rating. Let's give it 3 stars. Book rated successfully. Let's go back, and the data is there. Okay. Let's do it for another. Let's do it for Kite Runner. Purchased book, completed book. Kite Runner is over here. So the order here is the order at which you inserted the book into the database for the first time. Rate book, 4-star, you get 4-star. Refresh, and it is retained. All right, so that's how the whole thing works. Hopefully that was helpful and kind of showed you how to work on the UI end of things. The part 1 is the backend, part 2 is the front end, and I'm gonna have one more part coming later this week, which is gonna be a summary of the whole application. So if this video was too long to follow, just go ahead and see part 3. That should do a good job of showing you how the whole thing works. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. That was a pretty long video, so I would encourage you to jump between chapters within the video. And look forward for part 3 that's coming up, I think, on Sunday, which is gonna be a summary of the whole thing. So that's gonna be much easier to digest. With that being said, hopefully you guys have a good rest of the day, and I'm gonna catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.